Life just kind of happens and it takes turns that you don't expect. There's a lot of hearts involved here. And I'm a mama bear, so I care 100% more about my children.
Brandon Blackstock was many things during his 48 years: a father, a music manager, a husband, and later a rancher in Montana, building a quieter life. For a time, his name was inseparable from Kelly Clarkson, the pop superstar he married in 2013 and later divorced in 2020.
I think the thing about divorce, that the hardest part of that is, like, it wasn't an overnight decision. I'm not the person to be like, oh, well, it never happened or nothing like that. No, it was beautiful for a minute. You know what I'm saying? It was awesome for a minute. And that's okay. It just didn't work out.
But in August 2025, when news broke that Brandon had died after a private battle with melanoma, the headlines focused less on his story and more on his fortune. Why? Let's just say the wealth he left behind was enough to stir tears in his family. But the truth is far more layered. Because between divorce settlements, lawsuits, ranch businesses, and the weight of family grief, Brandon's fortune wasn't quite what it used to be. So, what happened? How did the messy divorce affect his net worth? And did he actually leave anything behind for his family? Let's get into it. From Nashville to Kelly Clarkson. Before his messy divorce became the talk of the internet, Brandon Blackstock's life was nothing short of inspirational. His story begins in Fort Worth, Texas, where he was born on December 16, 1976, into a family already well-connected to the country music world. His father, Nashville Blackstock, built a career as a powerful manager in Nashville, steering the careers of artists like Blake Shelton and Reba McEntire. Through Nashville's marriage to Reba, Brandon grew up as her stepson, part of a household where music and celebrity were everyday realities. These early experiences gave him an insider's view of how the industry worked. The endless travel, the mix of glamour and grind, and the importance of not only performing talent, but also the business machine running behind it. It was perhaps inevitable that Brandon would find his way into the entertainment business. He carved out a path as a talent manager himself, following in his father's footsteps. While he never sought the spotlight, his work put him close to some of music's biggest names. Among them was Kelly Clarkson, whose career had exploded after winning the very first season of American Idol in 2002. Kelly's rise after that was meteoric. With platinum albums, Grammy Awards, and a fan base that stretched far beyond the pop world, Kelly never imagined her fortune could get better, until she met Brandon a decade later. The duo first met in the mid-2000s when Kelly rehearsed alongside Rascal Flatts, a band Brandon was working with at the time. At the time, sparks didn't immediately fly. Kelly was focused on her career and Brandon was in another relationship. But fate had a way of circling them back, because in 2012, they reconnected at the Super Bowl, where Kelly was performing the national anthem. This time, the connection was undeniable, and within months, they were dating seriously. By the end of the year, they were engaged. And finally, on the 20th of October 2013, Kelly married Brandon at Blackberry Farms in Tennessee, a scenic countryside wedding that seemed to promise a fairy tale future. The marriage created a blended family. Brandon already had 2 children, Savannah and Seth, from his first marriage to Melissa Ashworth. With Kelly, he would go on to have 2 more, River Rose, born in 2014, and Remington Alexander, born 2 years later. Kelly often spoke publicly about the joy of building a family after growing up in a fractured home, saying she had finally found the stability she longed for. Following their union, Brandon became not just her husband, but her manager, guiding parts of her career and helping negotiate opportunities. To the outside world, the couple seemed like a powerhouse. She was America's sweetheart turned global superstar, and he was the steady hand behind the scenes. Their life was split between Los Angeles, where Kelly filmed The Voice and other projects, and Montana, where the family purchased a sprawling ranch. The Montana property became especially important, a retreat where they could live away from paparazzi and raise their children with a sense of privacy. It was perfect for Brandon, considering he thrived in the wide-open spaces and leaned more into ranching and the slower rhythms of Western life. Kelly often described how much she loved that he grounded her, providing a counterbalance to her fast-paced career in the spotlight. Yet behind the smiles and Instagram posts, tensions grew. As Kelly's career continued to evolve, her marriage began to falter. By 2020, during the global pandemic, cracks had become too large to ignore. In June of that year, Kelly filed for divorce, citing irreconcilable differences. The move shocked fans as the couple had seemed inseparable, but those close to them hinted that differences in lifestyle, ambition, and the strain of managing both a marriage and a career partnership had taken a toll. What followed was not only the unraveling of a relationship, but the beginning of a financial and legal saga that would shape the final chapters of Brandon's life. The divorce and financial settlement. By the time of their split, Brandon had already begun shifting more deeply into Montana life, embracing ranching, rodeo production, and livestock auctions. But the divorce meant his name would forever be tied to Kelly Clarkson in the public eye. For him, that connection was both a blessing and a curse. Why? Because it gave him notoriety, made him a subject of fascination for tabloids eager to turn every court filing into headlines about money, power, and betrayal. And it set the stage for the complicated story of what, exactly, he left behind. But before we get into that, let's dive deeper into Kelly and Brandon's highly publicized divorce. When Kelly filed for divorce in June, citing irreconcilable differences, the entertainment world was taken by surprise. How on earth was this happening? To many fans, the couple seemed like an unshakable pair. Two people who had blended families, shared careers, and even built a life on a sprawling Montana ranch. But the truth was that beneath the surface, their marriage had reached a breaking point. The timing of the divorce was telling. The pandemic had forced families across the globe into isolation. And for the Clarksons, it meant more time on the Montana ranch. But it didn't explode all at once. It unraveled slowly. At first, Kelly spoke about the beauty of slowing down and spending more time with her children, but as weeks stretched into months, tensions began to grow between her and Brandon. And with every day that passed in isolation, it grew worse. Close friends hinted that lifestyle differences, disagreements over career ambitions, and the strain of working together professionally had amplified cracks that were already there. Shortly after, Kelly made the difficult choice to end the marriage, and with it, she initiated what would become a long and contentious legal battle. For a popular power couple like this duo, it's no surprise that their finances were complex. But it wasn't just because of Kelly's immense fortune as a singer, television host, and businesswoman, but also because Brandon had served as her manager through his father's company, Starstruck Management. That relationship blurred personal and professional boundaries, and when the divorce proceedings began, questions about money and contracts immediately followed. Court filings revealed just how high the financial stakes were. Kelly's net worth was estimated at over $45 million, built from her music sales, tours, The Voice, and her hit talk show, The Kelly Clarkson Show. Brandon, on the other hand, was in transition. He was shifting from his role as a talent manager to ranching in Montana, and his income streams were significantly smaller than Kelly's. This imbalance set the stage for a drawn-out debate over spousal support, child support, and division of assets. About a year later, things came to a head. A Los Angeles court ordered Kelly to pay Brandon nearly $200,000 a month in combined spousal and child support. This staggering figure, about $150,000 for spousal support and another $45,000 for child support, made headlines around the world. For Brandon, it was a financial lifeline that allowed him to maintain his Montana lifestyle. For Kelly, it was a painful reminder of how expensive the price of freedom could be. Even so, she continued to fight for custody of her children, insisting that their primary residence should be with her in Los Angeles. The Montana ranch soon became the symbol of their divorce. Brandon wanted to keep it, seeing it as the foundation of his new life, while Kelly wanted to sell it, arguing that it was a financial burden she no longer wished to shoulder. Courts eventually granted Brandon temporary ownership, but the ranch came with its own problems. Reports showed that he struggled to keep it financially sustainable, with upkeep costs reaching tens of thousands of dollars per month. At the same time, another legal battle unfolded. Kelly sued Starstruck Management, the company run by Brandon's father, claiming that they had overcharged her for commissions and failed to act in her best interests. This lawsuit completely broke the internet. Unknowingly, Kelly had revealed the tangled web of personal and professional ties that made their split even more complicated. For Brandon, it meant being caught between his ex-wife and his father's business. For Kelly, it was about reclaiming control of her career after years of blurred lines. By 2022, the divorce was finalized, but not without leaving deep scars. Kelly was awarded primary custody of their 2 children, with Brandon granted visitation in Montana. The financial settlement ensured he would receive ongoing support, but it also effectively ended his role in her career. Just like that, their once shared life was split down the middle. Kelly returned to Los Angeles with her children, while Brandon retreated to Montana, determined to build a new identity apart from the shadow of his famous ex-wife. To make matters much worse, the divorce wasn't just a private heartbreak. It was a public spectacle, with tabloids dissecting every court order and online fans taking sides. Some sympathized with Kelly, pointing out that she was the primary breadwinner and deserved to move on without being financially tethered to her ex. Others saw Brandon as a man trying to hold on to a way of life he had built, now reliant on support payments to stay afloat. Either way, the divorce exposed the fragility of what had once looked like a picture-perfect marriage. Unfortunately for Brandon, the settlement shaped the legacy he would leave behind. He had walked away from his role in Hollywood and music management, betting his future on Montana and ranch life. But that choice meant he relied heavily on what he received from Kelly, money that would later become the focus of whispers about his fortune and what exactly would be left for his family when his story ended. Life in Montana and the ranching dream. After the dust of the courtroom began to settle, Brandon Blackstock turned his attention to the place he believed would define his future: the Montana Ranch. To outsiders, this vast property, spanning hundreds of acres of sweeping land and nestled against the rugged beauty of the Rocky Mountains, seemed like the perfect escape from Hollywood's relentless pace. For Brandon, it represented both freedom and reinvention. Even though it had initially symbolized family unity, the ranch soon became Brandon's chance to carve out an identity separate from Kelly's fame and fortune. With this in mind, he leaned into the idea of ranching with determination, but it was far from an easy transition. Running a ranch wasn't just about enjoying the scenery. It demanded grueling work, financial investment, and an ability to turn the land into a profitable enterprise. Reports suggested that the upkeep of the ranch was exorbitant, costing nearly $80,000 a month. From paying staff and maintaining livestock to covering property taxes and utilities, the ranch quickly revealed itself as more burden than blessing. Yet Brandon held firm. Friends described him as someone who saw Montana as more than just land, but a lifestyle, a place where he could distance himself from the shadow of his father's music empire and the glare of Kelly's stardom. He wanted to be seen not as the ex-husband of a superstar or the son of a famous manager, but as a man who had built something enduring on his terms. But reality clashed with ambition. Ranching was a demanding business, and Brandon's experience had always been in entertainment management. Some critics argued that he lacked the background needed to turn the Montana property into a sustainable venture. Others pointed out that his ability to maintain the ranch was heavily tied to the financial support he received from Kelly. This dependence sparked endless debates in the tabloids and online forums. Was Brandon truly pursuing independence, or was his new life still indirectly funded by his past marriage? But even though he struggled to stabilize the finances around the ranch, he also used it to build a quieter life with his children during their visits. Away from Los Angeles, the children were able to experience wide open spaces, ride horses, and explore nature. For Brandon, that time with them was worth the sacrifices, even if the ranch never became a profitable business. Still, whispers about financial strain never left him. The ranch, with its massive costs and limited income, seemed like both a sanctuary and a trap. Some close to the family speculated that Brandon's refusal to part with it wasn't just about love for the land, but about pride. Possibly a refusal to admit that life after Kelly wasn't as stable as he had hoped. In the end, it was this life in Montana, this quiet, rugged, yet financially precarious life, that would set the stage for the final chapter of his life, the final days and his passing. By the time the calendar turned to 2025, Brandon had largely withdrawn from the public eye. To those who followed his story, the contrast was striking. This was a man who had once been surrounded by the noise of celebrity life. Now, he'd retreated into the quiet rhythms of rural living. Yet behind that quiet, things weren't as they seemed. The financial struggles surrounding the ranch aside, Brandon was dealing with a completely different kind of struggle: cancer. Specifically, malignant melanoma, an aggressive form of skin cancer, which he had fought for 3 years. For a long time, the details of his illness were never public knowledge. But as the months rolled by, it became pretty obvious that Brandon was dealing with so much more than a costly ranch and a bad reputation. Sadly, he wasn't around long enough to rectify the reputation or even truly enjoy a stable life on the ranch. In February 2025, news broke that Brandon had passed away on the ranch. He was only 48 years old. The details surrounding his passing were scarce, but the shock was immediate. For many, the name Blackstock was inseparable from Kelly Clarkson's story. And so the announcement carried not just grief, but a flood of memories about one of pop music's most public divorces. In the days following his death, tributes surfaced from those who knew him personally. Days later, on the 10th of August, a funeral was held for him at First Baptist Church in Fort Worth, Texas. His 18-year-old son Seth honored him on Instagram as his hero and best friend, while Kelly postponed her Las Vegas residency and public appearances to be with their kids. While public opinion had often been divided, those within his inner circle described Brandon as deeply devoted to his children, someone who lit up when he was with them. Even during the most turbulent times of his divorce, he had sought to keep his role as a father steady, building memories with his kids in Montana, away from the glare of cameras. Reactions to his passing were mixed in the public sphere. To some, Brandon would always be remembered through the lens of his marriage to Kelly, the high-profile love story, the split, and the messy aftermath. To others, he was Narvel Blackstock's son, forever tied to the legacy of the music empire his family had built. Kelly herself did not immediately issue a lengthy statement. Her silence, though unsurprising given the complexities of their history, spoke volumes. The two had shared years of marriage, 2 children, and countless private moments the world would never fully know. For her children's sake, Kelly's grief was likely tangled with the difficult truth of who Brandon had been. Both her partner, once and later, her adversary in court. At the time of his death, reports estimated Brandon's net worth to be around $10 million. This estimate came from his earnings as a talent manager, his ranching ventures in Montana, and his legal settlement from Kelly. Although it's still unclear what's going to happen to the fortune, some reports state that there might not even be much of anything left behind anyway. Why so? Well, turns out that much of that value is tied to assets, land, business ventures, not easily converted to cash, and some was countered by legal judgments, like the $2.6 million he was required to return to Kelly in 2023. The reality is, the fortune comprises a mix of legal settlement funds, real estate, business backings, and potentially debts or liabilities. Still, it's unclear how much will ultimately go to his family. Regardless, a fortune, no matter how juicy, is nothing compared to the void of losing a loved one. And for his family and friends, they'll forever live with the deeply painful knowledge that their father, brother, friend, and uncle would never storm into a room with a smile on his face. What are your thoughts? Tell us in the comments below. Thanks for watching. Please leave a like and subscribe to the channel so you're notified whenever we upload a new video.